There we are. We are live for another week, and we have about half the crew. The other half are expected. Perna says she'll be in a little while. She had to finish up a call. I know that the other David is got some issues with Wi-Fi, so we're not sure he'll make it. But hopefully, Terry, I don't know.
I've always got to give him the link, so I'll give it to him in Skype. We'll be good.
That could be it, yeah. Otherwise, somebody had mentioned spam of some sort and he was still ranting and hadn't realised what the time was. And I don't know where Jen is, but she sometimes loses the link as well. So hopefully she'll be in a little while. Let's kick off the traditional way. Oh, there we are. Bill, what have you been up to this week?
I've been looking at doing audits for a couple clients. Hey, Terry. They keep on filtering in. I'm not complaining too much. It's always good when no one show up. New adventures, new fun.
Yeah. How do you go about an audit these days? I mean, where do you start? Do you start with the cognitive walkthrough? Do you start with the tools and then do the cognitive walkthrough once you've got some of the data already?
I usually start with crawl, screaming frog crawl of the site, and try to create a content inventory from that crawl to get a sense of what the site is built like, how it's structured, what the potential problems are with the site. It helps me, rather than go to the site itself and try to make assumptions about it, to get that deeper glimpse of what's going on.
Yep. I tend to set the tools running and then do the walkthrough. And even before that, sometimes I will literally, if I don't know enough about the business, I'll look at the site first, then really get into the mindset.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, David. And
sorry, I'm in a coffee shop, so it might be a bit loud.
No worries. So we're getting a little bit of echo as well. We've got earphones for that final chance.
Thank you.
If not, what I'll do is I'll quickly mute you, unmute whenever you want to speak. There we go. So, yeah, I like to do the actual walkthrough and get that experience before I've got the data sometimes. I'll set the tools running, but I want to get the really human feel for it and then look at the data.
Right.
How about you, David?
Oh, actually, very similar myself, running, setting up a few audits, and also just, this time of year it's been quite quiet, so actually having the time to run through my audit processing as well, which has been nice. Just trying to make sure I'm capturing everything, running it as efficiently as possible. And I mean, I think along with what you were saying, Ammon, for me, it's about 9 times out of 10, I will jump onto the website first, get everything running in the background, and as you say, just get a feel for what the industry is, what the website's trying to do, and how it's working with their business. So yeah, a relaxing week.
Cool. Terry, audits. What's your method? Data first, or walkthrough first and then the data?
For audits, I always start with screaming frog. Identify the problems on the website. That's generally everything after that. Doesn't really, not much value to me, because I don't do much with links, and I just fix stuff on the site. So I'm looking for it to be the best it can be, ready to rank, right?
Yeah.
Your site, just because you built your site, it may not be ready to rank. Some at that point, it's impossible to rank because of the way the site was set up.
Yeah, I just, you know, I like the human appeal because obviously our customers aren't going to run a tool, and the tool, if you've got the data, sometimes frame how you see the site. So that's why I kind of like to get the human experience before I've got the data, so I'm in the same position, the same mindset as the customer, as the person using the site would be. I just find you can't get that innocence back. You can try and, you know, change your mindset and get back, but you don't actually get there. So I do like to do that when I can. Hey, Jen.
Hello. That is the most distracting background I think you've ever had.
Well, let the cards fall where they may, as long as the money keeps rolling. We will be kind of talking a little bit about automation and lotteries later. So, you know, I know Zara wanted to bring that up. So it kind of fit with that. David, I've muted you, but unmuted at will. It was just letting you get settled. I must admit, with coffee shops, or actually anytime you're using a tablet or a mobile, you do kind of need the earphones, otherwise it's hearing the speakers. Hold on, let me get unmute. Yeah. No, you've got unmute. Yeah, David says, what's your week like usually? You know, kind of give us a typical week of David says.
It is so variable at the moment. It really depends on what's happening with clients and projects, and then what's happening family side as well, especially over the summer. I've got a 6-month-old daughter, so between that and various interesting clients, literally anything can happen during the week. It's quite fascinating. So yeah, I mean, a lot of it is the strategy side, helping out some of the SME industry. Just look at how they're using digital within their business. But still, I always come back to the SEO side. It's where I started out, and it's you know, one of those areas that I just find so incredibly fascinating. Interesting seeing the fluctuations happening with Google at the moment as well.
Yes, there's some big changes coming. Which, you know, is nothing new for Google really, but yeah, I don't think these are penalties or new algorithms so much as testing several things that will be coming into play later. I've just got that feeling. It doesn't feel polished enough.
No.
Jen, you watch a lot of these.
It seems like people. Right now, it seems that people aren't really screaming that they're seeing a lot of sites being really, really demoted. It's more that people are just seeing a lot of just fluctuations, like swapping positions and stuff. So it's not, no one's really been able to see if there's like a pattern or something specific that's going on, because there's lots of changes, but it's not drastically where you can identify what's really happening, at least so far.
I will be popping the link in the live chat for people in a little while. I'm just seeing if Perna can get here first, so we don't use up her seat, basically. But yeah, I will put that link into the chat in a very little while. Now, David, are you able to unmute? If so, hello, how are you, and what's your week been like? Still muted.
Is that still muted?
Ah, there we are.
Oh, cool. No, my week has been pretty good. Obviously, I think I've been with Blue Glass now 6 weeks, so very much still getting the hang of things, looking to improve processes. But yeah, doing a whole lot of fun things, automating some tools, doing some client pitches. So yeah, overall been a good fun week. But yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of fluctuations. And yeah, we've been trying to look at it, but we've seen some clients have been trying to get some improvement and fix some issues, are suddenly ranking much better on some finance related terms. But yeah, there's just a lot of very strange things happening with the search results at the moment. You know, for some websites, you know, they're seeing, you know, they improve their rankings 20, 30 positions by not actually doing anything. So that's some of the competitors. So yeah, there is a lot of volatility at the moment. So yeah, I guess wait and see.
Yeah, it is that it just doesn't feel like an actual end update yet. It just seems a little bit random. The quality doesn't seem... It's not a massive change, is it? But it just doesn't feel...
I think I'll probably have a bit more of a look into it. Probably by Friday, have a bit more of an idea. But yeah, it doesn't seem consistent to a single industry or a single keyword. But yeah, I'm sure some of the bigger players are probably freaking out because they're seeing a lot of their competitors jumping around, which usually means there's an algorithm coming because it seems to be second and third page. It seems to be moving around a bit.
I sometimes wonder if they just, you know, plug in a new file sometimes and it just creates this kind of fluctuation.
Or it could just be Google manipulating the ranking tools. That's another possibility.
They've certainly been playing with data a lot recently.
Yep.
We're not all happy, especially with the keyword reporting and stuff like that. That's been probably the biggest story recently. How is everyone dealing with that? Anyone? Terry, what are you using for keywords now?
What am I using for keywords? Yeah, what's between my ears? I really changed my method. Like, to me, it used to be all about the amount of traffic a keyword gets, prioritizing my my work and going from there. I don't care how much traffic a keyword gets. I'm looking for words and I guess keywords too that are for content that I deem is needed for the website for either users or conversion. I don't make content now because there's X amount of queries on that keyword. To me, it's driving less than the best traffic, right? I want to spend my time driving traffic that puts money in the bank, right? Just driving traffic, I don't care what anyone says, any fool can do it, right? Any fool can just drive traffic. Takes a different attack to get the keywords and the content that draws an audience that actually wants to buy. Any fool can just drive traffic. Takes a different attack to get the key.
Yeah. Bill, how about you? Have you changed your approach to keywords?
No, I haven't, but I'm not doing too much with keywords right now. Other members of my team can do a lot of keyword research.
Are they using any different tools these days, or haven't you asked them? You just, you know, they produce a list. You're happy as long as it turns up.
I'm happy with the keyword research we're doing. We're using the same tools. We haven't changed.
David and David?
I mean, for me, it's a combination, and it really depends on the type of client as well. For some of the clients that I have, they're quite small, quite niche. So with them, it is very much, again, I think, similar to Terry, just thinking about who the potential client, potential customer is, and working through like that. But then, yeah, I mean, at the same time, have a look through the usual tool sets and sort of see whatever other information is out there and try and combine the two.
Yeah, so I'm finding doing a lot more work around, similar to, I guess, what Terry was saying about, picking keywords for the sake of keywords. It's obviously using AdWords data, using Search Console data. Actually had a fair bit of fun recently with SEMrush. So they've got their sort of their keyword kind of explorer. So that's producing some interesting types of keywords. But yeah, it's very much hit and miss. We are looking for phrases as well, so we extend it a lot. So we know we're not going to rank for cheap home loans. But how can I get a cheap home loan? Best cheap home loan option. So we're actually looking to try and see what phrases people are actually looking for, and find that's actually obviously more likely to convert. And also the client is more interested in that type of content, because we're saying, hey, we're going to do a page about cheap home loans. They're like, I don't care. But we're going to, how can people apply for home loans? That's obviously more relevant to their business, and it's something the client's more interested in having within their site rather than just keyword content.
Yeah. Hey, Ammon, I want to add, I didn't tell the most important part about what I was saying there. For me...
Carry on, because I'm still thinking about having fun with SEMrush.
No, now, one of the big parts I do is I look at the top 10 ranking documents for the query terms. And that's where I'm getting my semantic baskets from. I'm not going to keyword, generating tools. If there was a tool that would tell me the most used words on the top 10, I'd buy the frickin' thing in a minute, right? Because to me, that's a big part of ranking now. They're looking at those top 10 documents and trying to figure out what words are used what way in those documents, right? So to me, that's, I just implemented that part of it for the first time, and liking what I'm seeing.
Cool.
Definitely.
I've got one little tip that I've never seen shared before, so I thought I'd mention it. One of the ones that I sometimes find really useful is make a list of their competitors. Obviously, we do a bit of, who's linking to them kind of stuff anyway. Then do a search for links to that and narrow it down to just forums. What you're looking for is the questions people asked that somebody then supplied the link to, and you'll be amazed how good that is for telling you how they described the problem, what words they were using, and you can find the keywords nobody's used before.
I like that.
I just found that one is really useful. You can do the same with most social media, of course, but forums are particularly useful for it. Hey Dawn, how are you? How's your week been? You've got to unmute before you tell us.
Myself. No, it's been good. Just been really, really busy, and having said that, it is only Tuesday, so it has been like quite a chaotic week so far. And I'm back at uni this week. Starting my dissertation on Thursday. So yeah, it's just, and then I'm off to SEO Oktoberfest next week in Munich. So it's just trying to just fit everything in this week, and yeah, it's just been a bit mad really so far. Yeah. Never enough hours in the day, is there?
Hopefully Zara will be back in a moment and able to stick. Kristin, hello, how are you? How's your week been?
I'm really good. Yeah.
You're very quiet.
Am I? Okay.
Yeah.
I
think it's just the speaker on that is a little bit tinny. Let me see if I can turn it up this end. Yeah. Technical issues.
Better? Little better?
There you go. I've boosted your volume. You're fine.
Okay. Yeah, you like to keep me muted. No, deceiving. Yeah. Like, this is really good discussion. Well, I'm finding it very relevant to what I am actually needing right now. I think as content curators, like we're often trying to find, like, how can I be more relevant to the people that are looking for our clients? So
hopefully Zara will be able to get in this time. But if not, let me remind everyone what it was. I did put the link in the event page. But there was an article. Let me see, was it Sumo?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was looking at one tip of a big iceberg at the moment with a lot more content automation, the idea of producing content on industrial scales. Now, they were particularly looking at the Washington Post, which, of course, Jeff Bezos bought up a little while ago, and the fact that they are now publishing 1,200 articles per day.
Content factory.
Yes.
That's
And, you know, a lot of people felt, as we did, that, you know, quality is more important than quantity, but actually, this is working for him.
For now.
For now.
I hate quantity.
I hate factory. I hate the word factory when you. It's like farm. It's like content farm. It's just going to be not much better than Link Farm in the future. Farms and anything that's just en masse.
But I haven't noticed the quality of Washington Post suffering for it, though.
No.
Like, you can't, it's really hard to compare a site like the Washington Post with the sites that, you know, most webmasters are producing, because they don't have the same resources, don't have the same, I mean, the number of writers they have on staff must be just incredible. And the amount of content they publish out is a lot harder to compare, I think. I think the only probably content places I'm thinking of that would have that number of writers would be like the New York Times or maybe BuzzFeed now, because they're so significant.
I think that is one of the things. You know, farms aren't necessarily bad. We mostly get our food from farms. As long as the quality is there and the care is taken, there's nothing wrong with a farm per se. It's just that usually
that's not what I'm thinking of in terms of factories and farms. I mean, that's just having a big, highly skilled workforce. You know, presumably the New York Times doesn't just have that's not what I'm thinking of in terms of factories and farms. I mean, that's just having a big, highly skilled workforce. So presumably. Am I echoing here? Who's echoing?
I've just muted Zara while she catches up. We've just had the loop back. It's fine, Zara. Hey, good to see you here. Carry on, John.
The New York Times workforce generally are, at least, you know, they're decent writers. They're not just. That's not what my understanding of these whole content factories and content farms is. Really, it's just really low quality stuff.
My concern when I read the article, can you guys hear me? Am I live now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. My concern when I read the article was for, yes, all the rest of us, besides the great big giant establishments, the things or entities, you know, most small businesses do not have anywhere near the resources to pump out, you know, all that kind of stuff with good quality. I noticed in the article that one thing he recommended was good quality, shorter articles that go to a specific niche, even within the niche of the business, if that makes sense. So, for example, right now I'm working with a building inspector on a website, and we're overall targeting building inspection, of course. But on the other hand, we're looking at buyers in different stages of the buying cycle, and also how sellers can work and appeal to those buyers in their different cycles for existence. The first time home buyer versus the investment buyer versus retirement buyers, and they each have specific needs that go beyond the universal, yeah, home inspection is a cool thing. So, so anyway, when I read that article, I was like, oh my gosh, because I encourage business owners to, you know, come up with a lot of their content themselves. And I'm kind of the facilitator to make sure that the English is good, or the language is good, or that it connects, and or to suggest titles and meta descriptions and things like that. But overall, that you're speaking to your customers, and I think it's hard enough for many small businesses to, you know, have an idea of who their real customer is and create content that really speaks to them, both universally and on specifics, and at the same time crank out content. And cranking out content, I think, is just the wrong attitude.
I tend to think of something that it's close to the hearts of Bill and I, is the tragedy of the commons, where, you know, the story was that you've got this common land and everyone starts grazing their sheep there, and it's always more economical to put one more sheep on there.
Yeah.
Because you get the whole benefit of that sheep, even if that sheep is not nourished enough. It's still something from nothing, whereas the cost of it is borne by all. All the sheep are that little bit less well-fed, well-cared for. There is an element of that. I think a lot of people see it as taking away from the attention economy. We've had, lots of talk about content shock, that people only have so much attention, there's only so much time in a day, there's only so many people in the world, that kind of thing. We've certainly seen that Google is sending most of its traffic to, 10,000 sites was, I think, on one of the slides at MozCon. But actually, let's go back to that Google Q&A we just had. Google is having to get more selective about what it spiders. Spidering and keeping everything indexed is a big issue. It tries not to forget stuff, but Bill, you published something this week, didn't you, about Google delisting over 1 billion sites in one go. Now, it was an error correction, but even then, throwing 1 billion out at a time is kind of a big deal.
Didn't that turn out to be, that was just the number of sites that had DMCs against them? They weren't all done at once.
No, it was done over time. But even so, it's a huge amount. Hopefully there's a couple more, because I know Bill had to file a couple of DMCA requests this week after somebody was scraping his article. I do think, and it's something I think we said in the Google Q&A, but it's certainly something I've talked about with Dawn and with several of you in various places before. Crawl priority is going to become more and more important. I think it is literally 10 times more important than it was just 3 years ago. And I think in another 2 years, it will be 10 times more important than it is today, because that's the way things are going. And Google hasn't really started indexing video content and voice content yet in the way it will need to be able to move us into the age of voice search and voice use of the internet.
And of course, where all the AMP pages are being crawled as well. So if you look at server logs, and we know that AMP uses budget, there's all that AMP effectively. That's kind of double the crawl, or halved, depending on how much you're getting of it. So even more content being crawled, because it literally goes URL, AMP URL, URL, AMP URL. So twice as much on all the AMP pages.
Yeah, but that's only because they had nothing in the index until a couple of months ago. That doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, even so, there's only going to be more AMP documents.
Oh, there's not. People aren't going to line up to put that stuff on their page. Most people who are smart don't care. I don't. I'm not going to do it because Google told me to do it. I'll do it because it makes sense for my client. I'm not sure that it makes sense for my client. I mean, all I've heard so far is Google's story. There's always a lot more to it than what Google tells you. And there's always a lot more to implementing it than what Google tells you. Ask anybody who tried HTTPS on a whole site.
And I've heard some recent stories from people that I know that we know are new, the Next Web and Daily Mail have actually seen quite a big lift in what we call bonus traffic. So really big sites that are implementing AMP and actually getting quite a lot of additional traffic from that.
Washington Post did a study the same, talked about how much more traffic they're getting because of AMP as well.
And it's this dwell time seems to be the big win, doesn't it? You know, people are kind of sticking around a bit longer because it's a better experience on mobile. Anything, I don't care what it is. I don't care whether it's AMP, whatever it is. The current mobile experience without something is really crap for everybody. You've got all sorts of things jumping around. So whoever provides a solution, I'm up for it. It's not good.
Yeah. David?
So I've got two quick thoughts. One is definitely around the AMP and Instant. I mean, from a user, when you start clicking on websites that are using AMP through Facebook Instant pages, the experience is amazing. So from that pure perspective, you know, I would go for it, given the choice. Because as a user, it is magical. You know, the user doesn't want to wait 3 to 5 seconds for your bloody page to load. You know, if it can be loaded in half a second on mobile, it is amazing. So that's definitely, I would say, I'm all for pushing for things like AMP and just putting the, I guess, the warnings around it will take more time than expected. But back to the, I guess, the content farms, I don't actually have an issue with the whole idea of them producing 1,200 articles a day, because ideally they've got journalists. So if you're a specialist that follow, you know, a particular NFL team like NFL Giants, and you follow them day in, day out, and you've got thoughts and you've got news around them, you know, I'd imagine previously there'd be a lot of content they wouldn't produce because they didn't think there was demand for it, where now you've got, you know, social media where you can put, you know, short snippets. It doesn't have to be a 1,000-word article. So I definitely think the whole idea of them producing 1,200 pieces of content a day is just the start. I could see them definitely ramping up in the future to produce, you know, Twitter-only or, you know, LinkedIn-only content about that particular topic. Because I've got enough writers for it, and there's definitely demand. And I think the way the market seems to be going, people seem to be fragmenting. So the types of content you consume on Facebook versus what you consume on Twitter is different.
And I think to an extent it's got to be like other competitive channels, you know, like TV, where you compete, you try to have the best content in a particular niche or for a particular audience, and to keep that audience on your channel. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. People have been trying it for a while, but of course the internet is generally quite resistant. We like the self-serve. We like the second-to-second channel surfing that the internet gives us. It's not a passive sit back and maybe an ad break will remind me to change channel kind of experience. Okay, that killed the conversation dead, didn't it?
Thank you.
Hey, Arno, you joined late. How are you? What have you been up to this week?
Well, thanks. Yeah, I'm having some problems. Don't know what's up. But it's been an interesting week. I said last week, launching 2 new countries, and that takes up a lot of my time. Not much more. I guess that was about it.
So are these countries with different languages or simply with different...
Yeah, we're going to move in usual suspects. So we're going to do Turkey and Mexico.
Okay.
Which is interesting for me because I don't have any experiences with them, but we'll see.
Latin America is a very interesting market and a very different market. Some of the best network security people I've known come from that area of the world because their hacking community is fantastic. So one thing you do have to be extra careful with when opening up in Brazil or Latin America generally is make sure your site is extra secure, because some of them will just mess about just to see how competent you are, literally.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, but yeah, and since it's about childcare, it's kind of dangerous as well. So it's sensitive data. Are pretty careful, but a good point.
Yep,
valid point.
Yeah. David, did we check with you what you've been up to this week? Did we ask other than getting coffee?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, let me go back because, you know, content production is a thing we're all struggling with. I certainly do think that a certain amount of the long tail is going to certainly apply to content. And this means that where everyone used to chase the head terms in keywords, and only us SEOs realise the value of chasing some of the long tail stuff, the big publishers are catching on, and they are getting to the point where I don't need 3 million viewers a week on 10 pieces of content if I can produce 1,000 pieces of content and each collectively adds up to more. You know, between the lot of them, it's adding up to more. It's about total audience. And
I'll tell you what there is, Ammon, I'll tell you what there is, a huge amount going on with all this content production. Huge amounts of cannibalization of their own content across loads of big sites. You know, there's been quite High Data Metrics do quite a lot of good studies of this actually, and you know, it's kind of, I know we've got a lot of clustering seems to have appeared again in the SERPs at the moment. Chatting to some saying that, you know, for quite a lot of queries we're seeing like 6 out of the 10 sites in the top 10 are from 2 websites. But that aside, there seems to be an awful lot of websites or people just throwing content in. I mean, there may be journalists who aren't then considering the SEO aspect, and they literally are just like, the pages that rank for queries are different ones every time. Now, I know that there'll be intent, and Google will maybe have picked up a little bit of that intent from the browser behavior or, you know, the behavior of the searcher. But generally speaking, you just see different pages from the same site just jumping in and out, and they never quite achieve what they could fully achieve because they're just cannibalizing themselves. They're literally churning out content, and it all matches a lot of the same queries, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you mentioned news sites specifically. You don't want news sites to not do a new article about something that's updated simply because, oh, well, we already ranked for this term, because that would put journalism in a not very good spot, because you really want the most updated information. Like me, for example, I'm constantly posting stuff about various Google things that I probably have 10 other articles about, but they're all very unique to each other because there's some specific aspect of it, even though it all might be about Google AMP or Penguin or Panda or whatever.
But you probably, because you're in SEO as well, Jen, you probably use things like all that. You probably tick a lot of the other SEO boxes to make sure, generally speaking, the query matches, you know, new stuff aside, because obviously if somebody's typing a query in about, you know, such and such an update that might have happened in the past week or September, whatever, you'd make sure that that was the right page that ranked, wouldn't you? Because you're an SEO as well as a journalist. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, but the priority is still getting the most up-to-date content, right? It's not thinking about, oh, well, if this ranks already, why do I need another one? Because it's always something new.
Of course, it's got to be up to date, but ultimately, you know, I'm not talking about news type stuff, generally speaking.
Well, as you mentioned news specifically, that's why I was like, wait a minute.
See the type of thing I'm talking about, like e-commerce sites that are like just churning out stuff, and what they're finding is they're just constantly like ranking the wrong pages, and they just jump above each other all the time. And I just think it's definitely a sort of challenge for the bigger sites that they have to try and get a grip of, really.
Some of them, of course, they don't care about the right pages and the wrong pages. E-commerce, yes. If you're in the news game, which is, you know, the specific we were looking at there, or you're generally in publishing, it's views that are everything. It's getting the advertiser exposure up. It's getting the numbers. There is no such thing as a wrong page for them or a right page.
Even so, there's user experience. There's somebody actually clicks through and it is old news that comes up, then that's just not a good experience for anybody, is it? But I'm talking about on sites that, for instance, in e-commerce, you often end up with literally a wrong page with a bad meta description, easy to abandon because it literally is just not the right target that's ranking. You know? And often they're driven by the popularity of like the internal pages, so the seasonality, all the internal links obviously just reset ultimately, and just all these things for me need a little bit more TLC from people.
Yeah, but the interesting thing, sometimes you don't actually have full control of what page Google decides to rank for that particular query. So, you know, I know, going back to the eBay time, there were certain pages that were ranking for queries that they shouldn't be ranked for that query. Then there was a specific page put up that dealt with that particular topic. You know, links were adjusted so the old page didn't have as much authority, and Google just would not let it go. So I think for a lot of e-commerce companies...
We're losing your sound there.
Yeah. I just say that when I worked for David, worked with David, he spent a lot of time mapping keywords to content. I never, like, if I can fill all 10 spots, I'll take them. Like, to me, that's a goal. You want to take all 10. When there was only 1 or 2 pages from your site that they would really list on a query, then it was important. No, hey, I've seen 6, 7 pages from the same site in a query space. So I don't think mapping is that important anymore.
You also need to think of,
if content is related enough that they're ranking for the same thing, you better have cross-linked those articles. Or there should be some way that you can get all those articles in bulk. For instance, with Jen's site, it's great when she does that. If she's tagged it properly, I can do a search or go to that category on her site and get basically maybe a history on something, right? I think there's advantages to that too. If you're just churning out content, then it's just bullshit content and a waste of everybody's time. But
also think if it's also with what you're saying, like it might rank for the head term. So yes, I might have 10 pages that all rank for Google AMP, for example. But once you get into the long tail queries, you're going to have different pages ranking. And if you had said to someone writing that content, well, you already have 3 pages on Google AMP, so we don't want any more, you would be losing all that long tail. Because like if I look at my Google search referrals in search analytics, I rank for all kinds of crazy terms when it comes to people searching for Google Panda, blah, 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 Google AMP, blah, 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 Penguin, like all the same thing, all the long tail stuff, all different pages rank. So you'd be losing all that long tail traffic if someone was saying, well, you already rank for this term, so we don't want any more content. I think that's just the wrong approach.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a lot of times when product updates or there's news about something that you've written about extensively in the past. And of course, you're going to cover it. You know, it would be ridiculous not to. It would be unnatural not to. It'd be like Bill and I saying, you know what, we discussed Google quite a lot. We're not going to talk about it in a Bogus Hangout anymore. And the next Google Q&A, we're not going to talk about Google. Let's talk about DuckDuckGo, because we haven't talked about that much.
It also comes down to the point, Ammon, that it's about, is the content needed, right? In her case, it's event-driven, so very important. To me now, that's the main consideration. What is the purpose of this content for the website and the sales process? Not to drive traffic, because I don't think that is the best strategy anymore. Everybody that I know that's been in the game a while is addressing that part of the strategy. I know that Dave picked up many years ago. I always ask a client, what's your top margin products? What do you need to sell? What do you have to sell? Those are the priorities, not whether it gets 1,000, you know, 1,000 hits, or excuse me, 1,000 visitors or one visitor. If that one visitor buys, it's important. I don't know. I guess I just look at things.
No, you know, I think that's absolutely valid, and for a lot of
but there is
focus where the money is.
There is like too similar content, which is an issue. I mean, and obviously that's more around, you know, not great content, as you said in the first place, and there is an awful lot of that still around with e-commerce.
When you say too similar, you don't mean duplicate.
No, I don't mean duplicate, because duplicates are filtered out anyway, but I'm talking about too similar content. So in actual fact, there's not a huge amount that differentiates, and relevance is effectively diluted amongst them as such. So they never quite get there. They never quite get there because they're just not strong enough on their own.
There's times when I will create very similar content for a very good reason. One of the things I've talked about in the past is landing paths. You know, we used to have this thing of landing pages where you try and get one page that does everything for a particular customer, that's the perfect landing page for that customer. So sometimes this is to go with an ad campaign that's going in one particular magazine. You know the demographic, you know where they've come from. This page is tailored to those customers specifically to, you know, ease them into the site. Well, there are times when one page isn't enough. Look, they've come through on a specific thing. They expect you to remember that. As you then make your pitch, it should have that in mind. The example I gave years ago was, okay, you've got a site that sells widgets. Now, you've got a unique manufacturing process, and because of this, it uses a little bit less material. Because it uses less material, it's a little bit cheaper. Because it uses less material, it's a little bit lighter weight. So, you've now got lightweight widgets, cheap widgets, as very different terms. If you're after a lightweight widget, it's more of a technical issue, and the fact that it's cheap might put you off. Oh, hang on, is the quality still there?
Would you have two pages for that? Because I wouldn't. I would never have 2 pages for light white and, you know, medium white.
Dawn, I sometimes have 2 sites for that.
Yeah, you can't help it a lot of times either, Don. Like, those products are given different SKUs, right? So if you don't list them on your site, you have to say, well, I'm not going to list this one, right?
I'm not sure.
How many?
I mean, for me, colour's an attribute. Colour is an attribute that you can make a great page.
Yeah, colour is an attribute.
But lots of companies give that a different SKU. And when you're basing your programs on SKUs, it changes. You have no control over that.
Plus, sometimes people are searching for a very specific color, and if you're not giving that an option at an individual page, like there's lots of times I'm searching for something specific for my house or for a gift or whatever, and I'm searching for ivory as the color, for example. And if I see a result that says it's white, I'm not going to bother looking because I'm looking for ivory.
Okay.
Let me give a.
What would you put on that page? Would you make a decent enough page for it to be considered a decent result, or would
Dawn,
it be...
let me see if this clears it up. You've got a company called Volkswagen. Now, they own a lot of different car factories. Why do they still sell them as different brands instead of selling them all as VW? Because it's very difficult to sell a Bugatti Veyron if it's got a VW badge on it. Nobody will buy a VW for several £1 million, but they will buy a Bugatti Veyron. Why has it got to have the different name?
Well, so then it justifies a unique page if you can make a decent enough page of it. But I just can't. I wouldn't waste the time on a slight variant of colour on a massive site.
You're trying a straw man argument there. We've already said that this is only where it's important.
Well,
where a thing is, a lightweight widget is cheap and it's technically different. The technical different is completely different thing to a different mindset than the cheap. I need to approach it all from the perspective if they've come in on the technical thing, I need to stress the quality all the time and mention the cheap as a side benefit, whereas on the cheap I need to make the cheap the primary point and mention the quality as a side benefit. If I start talking about quality on the cheap page, everyone thinks, oh, I mean it's cheap for the quality I can find cheaper. Okay, wrong message, you've lost them.
Yeah,
you also understand this is cheap.
Google will smooth a lot of that out itself in its supplemental index. So if you had a page for white widget and you had a page for ivory, or using that example, if they had the ivory page in the supplemental and someone put that in their search, that ivory page would be pulled out of the supplemental and served rather than the white page. Quite often that happens. I
know what it says, like similar results.
Right.
Results.
It smooths all that out itself. That's my personal opinion. And I've been building e-commerce sites for a long time, and that's always basically the premise that I go on, that I'm going to get as much indexed as I can and let Google handle the rest. And just make sure my prioritized products are getting indexed. After that, only so much you can do.
But then, we've dealt with quite a few issues with sites that have been station blocked, to be fair, and they've just, they've literally had every colour, every half centimetre measurement, etc. And for me, when you can just bulk it up, make sure it is all massively relevant, and maybe not, build bigger pages that are around better things. Things still get found, even if they're a feature or an attribute on a page, rather than an actual individual URL. That's what we found. I don't know, what's your thoughts, Bill? Because you obviously do quite a lot on stuff on this as well. What do you think?
When Terry starts mentioning things like the supplemental index, which supposedly Google made disappear 8 years ago, you wonder, because the only thing they made disappear was a statement that said a supplemental index exists on their pages. They no longer show that, but it's still easy to believe that there are pages out there that aren't getting page rank and indexed for other features, but are being indexed and do show up sometimes.
Well, everything's always there forever. Everything is always there. It's just always there. It's somewhere. They have it forever.
Right, but I tend to agree with you. If a color difference is listed as a feature on a page, it's still going to show up in Google's index as a feature rather than something distinguished by being at a different URL. It's still a valid way of getting
That's my view anyway, because it just seems like on a massive site, when you start adding like 5 different or 20 different, you've got 50,000 URLs and suddenly you've got 20 different nuances of, if you like, unimportant colours. All right, you gave the Bugatti grey example, which usually that's important because there's a real commercial reason why somebody is literally looking for Bugatti grey. But when you've got like, you know, it's like 50,000 suddenly by 20. You suddenly increase, I don't know, massive. Can't even add up at this minute. But just at the point, I don't know whether you would actually have.
This is where the psychology comes into it, and why so much conversion is about the psychology. It's about knowing what things are core decision parts, which parts are just optional features, and how you present that to users. And you know what? There's lots of times where you don't need to get it right. You'll get the sales from the people to whom it's not important, and somebody else will get the ones for the ones that it was important for. And you know that's no problem unless you want all. But yeah, there's no one size fits all. What there are is lots of options, and one of the things that I will use multiple sites for, multiple pages for, is when I can't make one version fit all, and I need to create a different version.
But you can make it stand on its own because, you know, as you say, it's a special case, and you want to make it stand on its own. It's got to be strong enough to actually support itself, hasn't it? I mean, obviously, Jen's doing are about individual stories, generally speaking, that are important to the readership. That's my point. It's about making sure that whatever you pick out is important enough to merit a query or enough queries. Yeah. So,
and most of the time, my decision isn't based on how Google works. It's about how users work.
Yeah.
Because
and
ultimately,
and are people
Google changed it to try and emulate how people work, not vice versa.
I did a recent, just done a recent test this past 2 months actually, where we looked at a lot of the content on a site, just a small sample with about 300 to 500 like blog pages on it, you know, like advice guides and whatnot. And you know, we got the Yoast thing on readability that we're all kind of laughing about the other week, saying nobody can ever pass the Yoast readability test with that new thing that they've got. So I thought, well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take notice of that and see whether I can get all these articles to pass that test, you know, where you make it smaller sentences, short, smaller paragraphs, use a non-passive voice, use transitionary phrases, etc. And, well, the results of it have been pretty unbelievable, actually. Because it seems that, I mean, it looks like, if you look on the government website, there's this page now, the UK government website, that says, we've changed our content because people have changed how they read. Yeah. And literally, we sort of rewrote all this content designed around the combination of that Yoast thing and the readability stuff. And the visibility for those pages has trebled in like 2 months. It's pretty profound, to be honest. So as you say, it's almost like it's kind of emulating a bit more human language, or the way that humans are reading.
Well, it makes sense that Google would rank something higher with shorter sentences. To me, anyhow, because of the phrase analysis. Like they're analyzing like a sentence of content rather than a word. So if you make your sentences shorter, it makes it easier for them to understand that sentence and the words within it. So that makes sense. I don't know if it's based on the length of the sentence. Like that's the point I'm making is you can't kind of draw.
No, it's a bit of a generalization, but it is literally
from that correlation.
Yeah, but it's the one thing, it's the only thing that we've done on that site this past 2 months.
Google could have done something.
Well, yeah, but I mean, from our side, yeah, but you can only measure really what you do from your side, can't you? You can't really measure everything that Google does because, as you say, it changes you know, we don't even have like whether it's completely confirmed that that was like an algorithm update or whatever officially from the other week. So we can only really look at what we've done and benchmark that and say, did something have an impact?
We are at the hour, so I'll do a lightning round of what everyone is up to in the week ahead. Starting with Bill. Bill, what are you up to this week?
I'm going to be looking at more of the automated assistant suggestions in Google Analytics with client sites and seeing if they're worth implementing. And some of them have been so far. Some of them have shown up to 10 suggestions. They're interesting things. Some of them make sense to try to do.
Cool. Did it suggest filing some DMCA requests for...
No, but it did suggest following articles of that type of topic, that they tended to be pretty popular. Yep. And I should keep on doing it. So I did, and got copied immediately by somebody. I guess it's popular amongst people who like to copy and scrape content too. Yeah?
Yeah. David S., what are you up to this week?
Yeah, I've got a couple of client pictures I'm working on, and I think it's interesting from what Dawn was saying about the content. That's something I was playing around a little while ago, and with the Hemingway app that was quite popular back then, and using that just as a general guide, I saw some interesting results, and I think I'm going to have a play around with that and have a look at the government website and what they're saying. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some good stuff on that in the past, so some experimenting this week as well.
Cool. David I., how about you? What are you up to this week?
Yeah, client pictures and meetings. Going up tomorrow to a client's premises at 5 a.m. to take some street view photos for a local test. And yeah, basically do some local stuff. I've got a couple of blog posts I'm due to write around local SEO, which have been going on far too long. Sorry, Bing. And yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah.
Oh, Bing don't care. Perna blew us out. Bing don't care, obviously. You know, I'm going to tease her mercilessly when she does turn up. Working a lot. Jennifer, what are you up to?
Writing as usual. Nothing specific.
That's what you think. Like I say, John Muir is laughing somewhere knowing what's coming. Terry.
Yeah, this week, well, I'm actually thinking about redeveloping a couple of my sites, so I may actually look at this AMP thing and see if it's, you know. So far, the only thing I have against it was suggested by Google. So for me, that's the start of it. Like, I'll have to really see some value for my clients. And just being fast on phone, that's fine, but I think people are so used to, like, to me, speed is relevant. And I don't think many users that have been using a phone to surf the internet realize they're going to have to wait for pages. So I don't think many people back out because you're not using AMP. I think this is all about reducing overhead for Google. And, you know, I'm not going to make my clients pay me to implement that to help Google. Not the way we work here.
Yep.
That's, you know, so again, I'll actually try it. See how, to me, it's always about how easy is this to do. And if I leave, will the next guy be able to maintain it? If I don't see that as a possibility for that client, then it's not workable, is it?
Bear in mind the other side to that, Terry. Sometimes it's worth implementing something that the next guy can't maintain, because that way you can't be replaced. It's always worth a thought.
Yeah, but my job is always to make myself, to work myself out of a job. That's actually...
I know. It's always worth bearing in mind.
To work himself out of work. So you've done everything. There's no more to do. That's actually our goal.
Cool. Kristen?
I'm concentrating on using every single scraper tool that I can find. And no, just
Do it all on Bill's content. He loves that.
No, seriously. I'm actually looking at trying to connect the dots between more local business with my different clients.
Cool.
Encourage them to make those connections.
You're not using scrapers, you're using content aggregator, not a scraper.
I don't know that I'm using that either.
or if you break it up a lot, it tends to be content aggregators. And certainly, somebody ended up with a lot of egg on their face this week. Dawn, what are you up to this week?
Working on client projects. I've got like loads of client calls tomorrow, and then Thursday and Friday I am back at university, and I'm starting on my dissertation. So I have 2 days dissertation awareness with a professor lady. So
Does your husband do what I would in that position? Go, I'm dating a student.
well, actually, he's dating a lecturer because next week I start as an associate lecturer at the university. So I'm a student stroke associate lecturer. So yeah.
Cool. And Zara, what are you up to this week?
Tomorrow I'm on a panel with Peter Hazeley with web promo experts on
Me too.
conceptual creativity. Yeah, Kristen is too. And I've been rereading Bill's patent reviews and notes about co-occurrence and phrase-based indexing, and kind of getting a feel for all of that, because all of that is interrelated with what Peter is doing with his conceptual intelligence search engine. So I'm looking forward to that. So it's Omi Sito and Theodora Petkova and Kristen and myself and Katarina Vasilenki. So it should be, and Peter, of course. Peter is giving a presentation. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the rest of the week, writing, working with my clients, and carrying on with life. Tomorrow they're turning off the water where I live. So it'll be a day without water, which should be interesting. That's it.
Cool. Well, that's all we got time for this week. About 8 minutes ago, actually. But, we're good. We always do this. We will see you next week. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Take care.
Bye now.